Hi, I just am preparing to go to another city and I want to take you with me. So this is William Kl2Pq in exile. I truly am in exile, and this is my home I built, and I'm preparing to go back to Alaska, and I want to take you to a city called Marbell in Mindanao. And so I want to start out right here to show you my home, and then I'm gonna go back and show you some more in the city of Marbell, and we're on the way right now. Anyway, thank you for being with me and watching my channel, and we will be back with you in a minute. I'm in the city of Marbell, and I'm getting ready to go back to Alaska. We're having a christening for him in the church. And so we're preparing in the city, and I bought a shirt, and him a shirt. We're getting ready for the christening in the church at Lake Cebu. Anyway, this is he's going to Alaska with me. Anyway, just want you to meet him. He needs to be a homesteader like me. God bless, and we'll see you somewhere else in the story. We're leaving the city now, and we're going to take a tricycle to the van, then the van to my motorcycle, and then go up in the mountain. Anyway, we're leaving the city, Marbell, and this is what we're taking. Take him, show him. Okay, and I'll talk to you again when I get home. Hello again, this is William Kl2Pq in exile. I showed you a couple of quick photos, shots of being in the big city in Marbell. When I'm doing this videos, it's hard to look good and look pleasant because I had a lot of abuse losing my farm. I'm a real homesteader. 5th generation, my family's always been homesteaders, and so I apologize the first couple of videos. I don't put much character in it because I guess I'm whining too much because I take so much abuse, and then also my illness too. So anyway, what I wanted to say is that I'm here in Mindanao, getting ready to go back to Alaska. It's a very hazardous place for me, and this place here can be hazardous also. Now, I have, since I went back and forth here, life is very hard. I'm going to tell you something. A few years ago, I went back and forth trying to get my farm many times. Anyway, I came here giving up on life pretty much because I have the Havana syndrome, but I didn't know what it was. I've been in the hospital a few times and nobody can figure it out. Anyway, so I'm really depressed, and I thought, well, Lord, because I know He's my boss. Anyway, I said, well, I can give up. So I go in the mountains in Mindanao and try to make friends and everything. And I'm going to tell you a little story. I come here and I meet some really nice people. And when I'm talking to you, I've got to be kind of careful of what I say because there's some dangers. I'll give an example. They they steal children here and sell their body parts. They kill them, and then they also have the army comes here and fights sometimes. Anyway, so there are some difficulties. Now, so up close and personal, some things I'm not going to elaborate on too much because it causes more danger. But I'll tell you, Alaska I can talk about, and there's a lot of danger there. I have good friends that are retired state troopers. I worked in law enforcement at the end of the pipeline. And I was going to be a trooper, and then I seen a lot of dirty politics, and I decided no. I had a friend now that's passed on, and he was a state trooper, Pump Station 7, and then he worked with me in Fairbanks. If I would make an arrest, he would have to come and get the person and all that, because the law in Fairbanks at that time didn't allow you to transport. I worked for a private police company, and we were police. And I had a certificate. The test took 2 days into the pipeline. And nowadays, politics are much different. Nowadays, they want a college degree and a bunch of political crap that would just make some other people rich. But anyway, at that time, I worked in Fairbanks, and then I did a lot of prisoner work. I had to watch prisoners and take care of them, and then I had to, especially the hospital. It got kind of gruesome there. One time, I had one prisoner that hurt the other prisoner. One's on one floor and one's on the other floor. And very crazy. I'm going back and forth, watching one a few days and the other one. Then I go back down and I got to Captain Bartlett as part of my beat, and I worked in there a while. And into the pipeline was pretty wild. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to put a little more character in the videos, and I love ham radio, I love farming, I love John Deere tractors, and I love animals, and I love farming. Farming to me is the greatest thing that there is. I went to college in Utah, but I found out when I went to college that my uncles and my father were much smarter in the same subject I was taking in college, and they never went to college in their life. They were very intelligent, and their skills, they trained me. When I went to college, I didn't even have to buy all the books. I challenged classes, except for English. English was a bugger. But the rest, because I was a sergeant in the Army, and one day the company commander came to me, and I'm only like 19, I think, years old. And the company commander said, "Do you like them stripes?" And I said, "Well, yes, sir, that's my job." And I just couldn't figure out. He says, "Well, tomorrow at 0700 you'll be in school if you want to keep them." So anyway, the Army put me in high school in Germany, and I graduated. Anyway, so then I went to college later in Utah, which is the beginning of the hard life I have. But anyway, I want you to know personally a lot about me, because I'm fighting essentially for my life and my farm back. Now, in Mindanao here, I've got 3 children, and I want them in Alaska. Now, they have no papa. They only got me. And so I can't talk about some things that are very descriptive because it makes a danger. But I got a girl, Pritzy, and I got a boy, Jeff. And I got another real young one, and he's, you've seen in the movie, I'm taking him to christening. And I had to go to this big city to get a shirt for him and a shirt for me to look good, because the christening is in the church as part of the culture here. I live with the Taboli tribe people, and they're very strong believers, and a much tribal history and tribal life, and the tribal culture is very strong here, and also believing in God is strong. And so there's a mixture between tribal culture and the Bible's teaching. So many of my friends in Alaska are tribal too, but their belief in some things are similar, but not all. And I lived a lot of my life in Nenana, and I liked Nenana a lot. I lived close to Nenana, and I liked George Hall. George Hall is the place that where the tribal government meets, and they have celebrations and everything. And I like to go there on the barges as a mechanic, and they let me live sometimes in Fort Yukon, and I worked there too. And I really liked Fort Yukon too. I like to live there. Now, go back a little bit on how I got to Alaska. When I was in the Army, I got a man in my squad. His name was David Albert, and he was from Arctic Village. And we had some really hard times, and he was my best friend. And that's when I learned a lot more about Alaska. I'm only 18, 17 then when I meet David. And we're friends all the time. And he's, at the time, his uncle was the chief. And then he wrote his grandma in the language of Arctic Village, Gwich'in. And then we had a lot of fun in the Army being friends because it was pretty hazardous. Anyway, his sister got moved to Fairbanks. I think her name was Lisa. Anyway, they make a lot of jokes in the Army. He's trying to get me to marry his sister and all that stuff. I wasn't going to do that because I didn't know her. But anyway, I miss him. He's gone now. He's in heaven. But anyway, I'm going to tell you, Alaska, to me, I'm from Montana. I was raised on a homestead from my grandfathers in Montana. Then we lost everything, and so I go to Alaska and my old ancestors all get together in a car, in a camper. And they come all the way to Alaska when I get a homestead and say, you continue our family heritage, and they give me the blessing, because they're all believers. And most of my family, on that side of my family, is Bohemian. And my mama's family also farmers, and she's a mix of Chickasaw, and she's a mix of many other people too. Anyway, they give me the blessing, but the Bohemian part of my family all came to Alaska, and then I started like 35 years ago. And now I have lost everything, keeping my belief. And I've lost my children and my family, but the thing of it is he's still there, and I've had some terrible times. But I want to tell you, this is a ham radio channel, and so I showed you the last time I was making something. I believe that the freedom of, the keys to freedom is in education. There's very, very hard times coming for our country. So if you're a small farmer or a person going to work with your hands, going to survive, I think understanding frequencies and being able to communicate is the First Amendment. And it's really important, because if you're going to survive, many people believe that, we can store up guns and ammunition and we're going to be strong, but that's not practical. You have to trade, you have to live, you have to produce. Business has a rule. All the buses in Dan Alley Park, and I was a materials controller manager one time at the largest gold mine in Alaska when I was young for a while. Now, business is different if you believe in the rules or not. It's all different way of life. But business, if you're young and watching this, it's got some rules to be successful. Supply and demand, expansion, duplication. The reason I say it that way is your own wish to become something or do something in business is nice, it's a dream, but there has to be a reality. Is it really needed? Are you really going to be able to make it work? And that's where a lot of people get in trouble in businesses. They got to take what their heart really is and make it practical of what's going to happen. Now, supply and demand, expansion, duplication. If you're a very small farmer, it's still the same rules. You're always working to be a little more efficient and to get a little more expansion and to build a little more. The kind of rule of life is, if it's not growing, it's dying. So a lot of businesses only keep 3 of these rules, and that's called crisis management, and they don't get very far. Now, of course, there's some weird things now where you invest money on Bitcoin and a bunch of stuff, but there's some reasons you need to keep the rules of how business can work that's providing something to make something back. If you're making money and not providing anything, sooner or later it's going to get you, because the way of life is not the way of freedom, the way God has intended us to live. Anyway, so back to the ham radio. The last time I built this, and I was showing you something, and I got some of it done, and what I had showed in the last video was, I want to make a way, say you're a farmer or working as a mechanic, and you can take something 6 volts and make it 12 volt, or take something really high tech and that's obsolete now, you can't get the parts, and redesign it and make it work. And that kind of person, common sense and can apply your own wisdom. Well, when you get to electronics, sometimes they get a little bit difficult, but they can be simple and understandable if you see it the right way. When I was a young boy, my papa taught me about ignition systems and how to make them work. And I was really young, and I learned, and I was way ahead of people around me that were in high school. And I could build things with my hands when I was a little boy. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that no matter how old you are, if you're a man or a woman, there's hard times coming. So to be able to understand how to build communication equipment with your hands, is pretty important, and it can be simple, not complicated. We don't need flip-flop circuits, and we don't need, I'm not much of liking. I use them, but I'm not much liking silicone chips because I can't build them, I can't fix them, I can't see them, and they're so high-tech, they're untouchable. You can't fix it. So, one more thing with this video, to get to know the person is my idea in ham radio, and I'm actually trying to get help from the public because I want my farm back, and I have got pushed in the corner by the Superior Court, which is continually breaking the law. But my idea is this: I have to have hope, I have to be brave, I have to stand up, I have to fight my health problems, and I got to go back and farm. My life is sitting on the John Deere tractor and wearing my tube radios and having children. I mean, that's what I live for. And I like to be happy, and I got to be free. Freedom's got to be first. And let me tell you something about freedom. Freedom only comes from God. I don't care how you believe or what religion you are. You're not going to be free if you don't love your neighbor, because the freedom comes from freedom. And that's the only way you're going to have any. And so, okay, so anyway, this is what I was building in the last picture. So anyway, what I got is, you don't remember from last time, I'm producing signal, and I'm seeing okay, anyway, what I'm doing here is, I can show you a little bit, but I had a problem. I'm held up again. Parts here are really, really hard to get. And this part here is producing 2,000 megacycles all by itself. It's not supposed to. This is a little bitty kicker amplifier for RF. And it has a problem, and it's another silicone chip, of course. Anyway, so I'm held up a little bit. This has to be in the back end part of what I'm designing and doing. Now, my idea is for everybody to be able to, this here machine is made by me, a conglomerate of a bunch of stuff stuck together. It makes it easy and convenient to work. So then when you start using these, and then you want to build a tank circuit, and you wire now, when you get a frequency, you get the right capacitance, you get the right wraps of wire, you get the right resonance, and you get the right frequency coming in. So the idea is to keep everything simple. So if I got a little radio that I'm building, a receiver, and I'm putting in on the antenna wire 20 megacycles, I should be able to build a tank circuit, and then be able to see it, put it in the input, see the frequency coming through, and hearing the tone. Now, when you hear the tone, then you get it louder and less, because otherwise you're going to spend a lot of money on a lot of real expensive equipment, and it's not necessary. And this here will get you going, and then, but the understanding is really, really important. And I want to back up a little bit. Now, I'm not really good at this, so I'm going to tell you where to get resource information. The best way to learn is being self-taught. And then if you go online, there's one site called the Tube Roaster, and he talks about a 12AU7. Now, his explanation of how a regen radio works is really good. And then there's other people on there. There's Carlson's Lab, and then there's a woman, a person there. And then it's about taking old radios and building them, and then fixing them and repairing them, and a cat. Anyway, and this is a glass slinger. I really like watching the video, and then I like Carlson's Lab is really good, and many, many other ones are really good. And this gentleman here, the tube roaster, he explains really well the circuit. Now, in the beginning, you're building, let's go way back to starting, say you're building a crystal radio. There's different circuits. Some crystal radio circuits have a good tank circuit and they're balanced. Now, there's a lot of ads on there. One guy online, I don't have his name right here right now, but he makes a tank circuit with the crystal radio that is really good. Now, a crystal radio if it's built the right way, you can have expansionism, you know, and you can make it be a bigger radio, and you can make it do a lot with a crystal detector in the beginning, or you can have a preamp building in front of the crystal radio that's breaking the signal down too, and you can do a lot. So the idea is to be self-taught, to understand what's happening. Now, I'm not gonna get into something really detailed right now because I don't have all my parts for making this to work, but it does come on. And let's see, and this here is independent. Now the reason I have this voltmeter built in here is when you're building a radio, especially with tubes low voltage, you want to be able to see the peak of the voltage. Now this is analog dial, just a dial. And the reason I have this one here, if you're adjusting a capacitor, putting a resistor in, and you're changing things, and you want to see the peak voltage, because the peak voltage is giving you the peak resistance, and there's many reasons you want to be able to see that. Now this is a 12AU7 tube. Now this tube is very nice because it works low voltage, and it's actually two tubes inside of one. You can take one circuit and go through and make it work in your detector and in your tank circuit, and then the other circuit can be an amplifier, or you can pull it through one and then kick it through the other one, amplify it more. But to understand the tubes, now it's really one thing to understand right away with tubes, is you have to figure out something that running two currents on the same circuit. You can run a DC current and an AC current on the same wire. Now this is really important to understand when you're working with tubes. Now the idea is to take some more voltage, some more push, and take in the other circuit. When the electrons are jumping through the air inside the tube from one place to the other, they're increasing the amount of push in the frequency that you have by when this is jumping there. Now you need to really listen to the people on YouTube. They're very talented, probably better at explaining than me. But the thing of it is if you can take a car, a farm tractor, and start building everything, convert it to 12 volt, and to get this understanding, believe me, your hands are in the grasp of understanding tube circuits and how they amplify and how they get bigger and how they increase. Now, it's not that difficult, but at first it looks that way. So a lot of people get into radio and they get overwhelmed and, oh, and I don't see that, I don't get that. You don't have to be really good at math. You don't have to be, you need to understand some math, but I'm not good at that. I'm not like Carlson, he's a genius. I have a ham radio license, I extra, but these guys are the smart tank. But I'm going to tell you, as a farmer, put my hands on my tractor, or put my hands on a radio, or put my hands on building a building or anything, or learning about stress on seeds. I'm big at teaching about agriculture, seed stress. Anyway, so I want to teach a little bit about ham radio, because this is a ham radio channel. So anyway, so what I got here is, let's see, turn it up. And I got a jumper going across here. Let me see. I don't know if you can hear that sound there. Probably might be hard to hear with the... There we go. Hear that? Now what that is that's a frequency coming all through. Now it's going from the... this thing that's making the frequency is supposed to be going over here, but this isn't reading right because my kicker is out of the circuit. And I got it figured out where I want to put enough impulse into the antenna to get the signal to go through, but not enough impulse to make it where it causes other problems where it's jumping through, and it has to be accurate. It has to be, your detector has to be pulling for the right signal on its own. And so I don't know how to explain it's way better than that. So then when I get this piece in, I'll be able to explain this machine much better. But it's very simple. It has this here is a signal generator. And this one here teaches shows you digital, the frequency monitor. And then this one here is just an amplifier, signal tracer. And you can use this in many different applications. Now, I have, show you what I got. I have different kind of leads, a whole box of leads. Now, one of them I use on the signal tracer. It's just an alligator clip in the end. And then there's other components you can get with the diode and some other things to improve it and how it works. And I will get into all that when I can make it work in front of you. But anyway, the idea of this is to keep it simple where anybody can understand. So if you're taking your old M International tractor or your whatever you're converting to 12 volts and fixing everything, you should be able to handle how the tubes radios are working, because it's just like, instead of one circuit calculating an ignition system, if you add two more different kind of circuits in the same picture doing different things together, then you're kind of going to understand how a tube works. So if you take converting an automotive system to 12 volt and multiply times 3 in your understanding, you're going to be able to figure out this tube. And so it's remember, the idea is that makes it work is two signals, two currents going over the same wire, AC and a DC, same time. And then this goes. Now this is a frame I wanted to make for the first radio. Anyway, so this is a copper plate. This needs a double pole, not a single pole. But I need this here for putting in much more circuits, so you can break the circuits down so we can get all frequencies. And this, of course, is the. And then I made all these, set on here. And then this is a wire I'm going to use for winding the coils, and I got, see, I think on the back there you can see I've got for the antenna, and then I got for power. Anyway, there's some things I want to tell you for storing up parts. Now, in the beginning of this, and I'm not going to make it a big story about building a whole radio now because I'm collecting. In Southeast Asia, where getting electronic parts is absolutely horrible. It's a really big job. And so I order them through a thing called Shopee, and then half the time they're not coming, or they get the orders canceled. I order a lot of electronic components and it's canceled. And then there's no mail service here that'll work at all, so the man comes and finds you, and then you got to get a delivery. But the postal service, like in the U.S., does not exist here, and so it's a lot different. Now, if you're storing up parts, getting ready, there's hard times coming. So I suggest that you start storing some things, and one of them is a transistor. You don't need a lot of different components. But if you get a few, they will do many big jobs. Now this transistor here is high speed. It's called a 3904. You can buy these online, and I suggest you get a box of them and keep them somewhere because they'll do a lot of different tasks for you. And it's called a 3904. Then this one here, now, if you look online, you'll see them building inverters. Now, if you get into anything high voltage, you're going to have a way to have a power supply. And now this one here, the number on, now if you look online with making inverters, you'll see this transistor over and over and over. And it's this one here is called a 250718. But this is a popular one for making inverters. And you need that to make a higher voltage, especially if you're building high frequency radios. You know, you're going to need more voltage with transmitters. And so you're going to need a power supply. And I suggest you get this one and store a bunch of them because the big power transistors that they used to use, they're getting kind of hard to find. You can store a bunch of them, and then you can worry about filtering out the impurities later. But I suggest these two transistors to be in your storage somewhere, because when the crap hits the fan, there's no more things going to be able to be accomplished that way. And I pray that when a hard times hit, you're a small farmer, got some small acreage where you can plant, because the bad times are coming. Anyway, this one here is from Microwave. Now, if you look on YouTube, you need to watch him, listen to them a lot. I suggest that you take a notebook and then stop your player and then redo it and then copy some things down and draw out circuits and try to learn the gist of how they work. And once you learn it, then it's going to stay the same. But you don't have to get too complex. You know, that's the problem, like learning a musical instrument. You get overwhelmed, but you don't need to with electronics. If you learn some simple forms, and the best way with tubes is learn how both currents can go over the same wire, then you'll get tubes figured out. This is called a Franklin oscillator. Now, if you're going to build equipment, especially single sideband, and you want to stay low voltage, I suggest the circuits you're using, this is low voltage. Anyway, so these parts I suggest that you try to get and save, because no matter what I say or anybody says, these basic components are going to be needed. Anyway, circuits you can find for crystal radio. Don't line crystal radio out as something that's not practical or anything, because crystal radio with modern components, modern amplifiers, you can do a lot with that kind of circuit, especially if you get a good tank circuit in a crystal system. There's one video where the guy is just disliking all the crystal radio circuits. Then he finds one tank circuit, and it puts a capacitor right in the center of the channel and reaches all of the different channels on the AM radio. And when you find that one online, and I don't have his name with me, but he's not hard to find, then you're going to see really good. To take a little time on YouTube and look at the other channels is really good for you to learn. Everybody says it a little different way, and they're very great. And I'll tell you something about ham radio people. I've known a lot of them. In Alaska we have them. And they're usually really nice. The kind of person that has a ham radio license, he's kind of a guy that likes to work on things, and he's pretty well kind, easygoing, and the culture of that was like the small farmers. So pretty good people. I've never met hardly any ham radio people that I didn't like. Not even if they didn't agree with what they believed, they were always very nice, and I learned. We talked back and forth. And anyway, this is a basic circuit. Now, of course, this I made out of the material here for building houses. This is a stud for a wall, and I cut it and fit it. And I got sides for it when I'm all done, and then I'm gonna, of course, this is the components. And then I got this one for all the different bands, except this needs to be a double throw, and I got a single, so we need a better switch. But this has got 7 positions, and you know, components are hard to get here. You'll probably recognize these connectors. They're very hard to get, and I'll wait a month and a half before I can get these, or a month trying to order it sometimes. And so that's the connectors, and these are kind of important, especially building and test equipment and dealing with RF. RF is a really funny thing, and I'll talk a little bit about it. When I was on my farm, I had in Alaska, I had a friend named Cecil. He's passed on now, but anyway, we were building, I was building an amplifier in 12 volts with sweep tubes. And I built my own power supply and everything. And everything in Alaska in the bushes, all 12 volts. I mean, 12 volts is the idea. Everything 110 starts out at 12 volts, pretty much. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you, I'm going to skip around a little. This is an arrow. And then what I want this for is, this is a pretty good arrow. I have I love archery and muzzleloaders. I shoot muskets. I hunt with a 62 caliber rifle I built almost 40 years ago. And it's a round ball, and it's 62 caliber, and it's a good bear rifle. Anyway, I'm sorry for the kids playing in the background, but they gotta talk. I gotta let it go because that's healthy. Anyway, so when I put my components on the board, if you watch Dr. Carlson's lab, he talks a lot about where components are placed and how they affect the radio. And when he sees a really good design of a radio, he notices right away how the components are located in the circuit and in the chassis. Now, we're going to talk about that, even doing a simple thing with the crystal radio is important to make the radio work better. So with these, what I want to do with these is anytime I'm putting switches in, I don't like them all back up against the wall. And then all the wires got to go there and back, and then it's all going to be terminated by where your wall is. I think it needs to be terminated by how the circuit is working, especially if you have something with a lot of variables. So when we build here, I'm going to use these arrows and I'm going to cut them off. And these are, of course, insulated. They're carbon. And then hollow, and then we'll make extensions to the knobs. And I like that idea. I picked that up watching YouTube, and I think it's pretty smart. And then when I go back to Alaska, if I come back the next time, when I come back, I'm going to take some tools with me back here that I can't get here. I got to hold it because shipping a DHL and it's very some things you can't send anyway. It's very difficult to ship freight. So back to me, the town in Nenana, Alaska, where I'm from, I have been told by retired state troopers, don't come back here. And Alaska's a pretty rough place with the current people that are in power in the government. Look, Alaska's beautiful. Many people work for government are nice. Some of my best friends retired or were in law enforcement, but Alaska has a real dark side right now. There's a globalist and Utah politician controlling agreement somehow, and it is rough. My town in Nenana that I'm close to is completely invaded by the Utah politicians, and they have a lot to do with me losing my farm and things against me. But I got to tell you, you have to keep the standard of the Constitution and the rights of others at the same time that you got to fight back. Now, I turned my other cheek 3 times, and I went, but this time I'm going back to Nenana, and I'm going to go back to the state government. Anyway, sorry for the interruption, but I have to hold in while we're taking a movie here for a minute. Anyway, this band switch is 7 position, and I want it for the radio, but it's a single pole, and I wish it actually had a triple pole. Now what happens when you make your tank circuit, when you got this and you put the switch, you got a whole new tank circuit. And so it's really important. I want every radio that I make to make sure it has AM regular radio broadcasts on the receiver, because, you know, that's important. And, this is the big boss here, so I gotta listen to him. Anyway, back to the politics in Alaska. Now look, I gotta be kind and generous, but I'll be honest with you, I'm going back into a war. A political war, and it's getting really bad. Now, I ran for governor in the last term, and I got them pretty upset. They had a warrant for my arrest, why I'm running for governor, and it's a pump up. And I'm going to tell you about me. I don't believe in breaking the law. I worked in law enforcement, and I think when the laws are bad, they got to be fixed and back taken constitutionally sound. You got to make the law work for you. So I'm never going to be the mind of a criminal, you know. And the Alaska State Trooper that had a warrant for me, I went back the last time and I found him. And I said, officer, I need to see what's your probable cause to put a warrant for me when I'm running for governor, for crying out loud. And I said, I want to see it. He says, I have good reasoning. He told me, well, first I talked to him on the phone. And then he said, you go get it, you got to get a lawyer because I didn't do nothing illegal. Well, he did. So anyway, so I went and found him. And I said, I want to see something. And he got angry at me, and he said that I have 1 minute to get out of his office. So that's okay. I went to the governor's office now. Governor Dunleavy, I've never met before, and I don't know anything about him, but I got to tell you about Alaska politics. They eat governors for breakfast. Having a job in Alaska and being a governor that's with the people, is very, very hard. I've had friends that have ran for governor and become one. I knew the old governor, Governor Jay Hammond. I knew one time I went to the fair in Palmer, Alaska with him. He's the one that made the dividend program, where you get a check every year. And I liked him a lot. And I went through the whole fair. And he told me about being a governor for him. He said that what he would do when they tried to expand government too much and they needed his signature for something, he would disappear and go fishing. They couldn't find him until the bell rang. Anyway, so he was a really nice guy, but he explained to me the whole situation of how I built the Alaska dividend. You see, in Alaska, there's no private property rights. Alaska doesn't really confine very much to the U.S. Constitution. There's so many problems here, especially for the Native people. They got a thing called Native Claims Settlement Act, and I don't like a lot of that thing. I believe in tribal government. You see, tribal governments are a real republic, and there's a couple of different tribal governments. Alaska's full of tribes. There's like 3 that I have a real problem with, but most of the tribal governments are republics and family-run and fast and efficient, and the government is supposed to meet the freedom and the desire of the people. It doesn't matter what the rest of the world is thinking. It matters what them people are doing there. You'll never find a tribal leader that's going to endorse a nuclear bomb or building the power or taking money or being a billionaire or something. They don't think that way because they're intelligent and they know better. And so I'm big, I believe in native sovereignty, 100%. And I love Alaska. And I'm here because of my faith and my belief. I was very powerful. I kept a government and taxes out of a huge area in Alaska for almost 30 years, and they are irate and mad at me. And the Utah politician, they want my head on a stick. But let me tell you something. The Bible says the simple can find the wise. People in Alaska, especially these politicians that take me now, they want to build a government and then have power and get funding in places to place themselves within it. And this power structure and society to build and take over the bush, Alaska's the last place we have freedom. And these people are invaded, and they can't stand the fact that you can make a living with your 2 hands, believe in God, and you can be left alone and don't need any support, don't need any social services, don't need any public support. You're on your own. They don't like that, so they make big. He makes a lot of trouble. So you make many, many things. He's got a lot of energy, this fellow. This is, anyway, he's anyway, he loves me. I've got a good boy. Anyway, and he belongs in Alaska. Anyway, so then they got to have this thing for power, and I have a lot of years fighting these guys already. My wife and family got really pushed hard and squeezed down by government organizations around me because I wouldn't back up. I'm not going to back up today. But anyway, I'm here in Southeast Asia because my Mennonite background is non-violent, and I tried to avoid violence, and I was already a veteran, so I already know that one. And so I'm here, but this time I'm coming back and I'm done. Okay, anyway, sorry. kids are kids. Anyway, had many years of fighting some really bad battles, and I've won them, and I got people very angry at me because they tried to take my farm away from me many times. One time the Department of Agriculture saved my farm, Federal Department of Agriculture. I'm so grateful. One time they said that I violated the Wetlands Act and they were going to take my farm, and they come out with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they come out with the State Department of Agriculture, and they come out with the U.S. Forest Service, and and I was in trouble. They threw papers on me, and I'm in my house, and I thought, oh, here we go. They're going to take away everything I've done in all these years. And so then I get to looking, and I start laughing. I can't believe it. So I went over to the lady that's not part of the state. The Army wasn't part of the state, Corps of Engineers either. And I show her, I said, hey, let's go for a walk. And so they all follow me. I take the map, and the map, I had one hill on my farm that's a higher spot, highest place. And that's right where they paper staked the X saying I did this kind of damage, which wasn't true anyway. And I said, well, Noah's Ark would have to come back before this is a wetland. And right away, the federal lady, her name was Ann Rippey, she said, Mr. Nimick, I'm sorry, I see what this is. He said, and she says, I'm gonna go home. I'm sorry that I bothered you. The Army Corps of Engineers lady, she was very nice and she apologized. She says, I can see that this is, but they've been trying to get me for a long time before they finally did. Now, in the beginning of this thing, you need to understand something before. I can't talk about politics all day. I look terrible. I don't know what it looks like on you, but I need your support. I see some guy whining all the time about losing his farm. It's not very smart. So anyway, so then what happens is, when it first got started, when I first got my land, they tried to take all rural Alaska and destroy it back then. They were going to put it all under government and all under a socialist system, and the people in the bush don't like that. They come to Alaska to be free, to be independent, to have a second chance, and to be left alone, and no more corruption. That's why we got the Alaska bush. That's why we're called the last frontier today, is because we are. I've had friends murdered trying to defend the last frontier. I know they were killed, and I'll get into that at another time. Anyway, I got so many years of fighting and everything against my family. My family's in there, pressure cooker. Anyway, I ended up, everything just blew up right before I was in my 60s to retire to farm full-time. Alaska species of barley, but I wanted to raise winter wheat. So I studied a long time. I had a friend named Kent Saylor that he's passed on now, but he showed me how to make winter wheat work. He was really good at plant stress. And I got to tell you, understanding seed stress is the key to being a good farmer, especially if you're a small farmer. You want to understand what the energy is taken in the seed before it gets coming up out of the ground all the way, where it's spent. That makes a big difference in how it works. Anyway, I'll get into that later, but what I was to do is expanded 300 more acres. And I had my combine all done, all the way through, all built, modified, everything was in a beautiful order. And then boom, the government hits me from everywhere from arson. You would not believe what they did to me. It would make a good Hollywood movie, what it would do. Nobody would believe it unless they'd seen it on TV. But I was almost burned out, and the fire department was there, and they leave the fire burning too. And me and my son and my neighbor, we take my old D7 cat and we fight the fire. And we pushed her out. But I thought I was going to melt the solder right out of the radiator. It got hot. But my neighbors run around with the chainsaw dropping peas toward the fire. And we pushed that bugger out of there, coming from two corners. And anyway, but then after that, they went after me again, and they have it now. But I'm fighting back to get it. I had to hire a private investigator to find out who even has the title. And I can't go through all the scenarios of everything that's going on, but I'll tell you this thing here. They broke the law, the public law, many, many times. The Alaska Superior Court weaponizes itself against the individual, makes them leave. Contractors have had to leave Alaska. Politicians have had to leave Alaska. It has got really vicious. And this is my thing with me and this YouTube channel is I'm coming back. And I believe in God's grace, and I believe in forgiveness, but I'm telling you, I'm coming back on the fight this time. I've come back here and got hurt and start over and tried to start over, and I got that injury, and then it's gotten really complex, but I love the Lord. I'm coming back to get my farm, and I'm asking you people on this channel to give me some support, because, I don't want power, money, or socialism. I want to farm, work with my hands, build my radios, be left alone and not borrow money and not owe money. And I believe a man's got to be responsible for his own actions. And that's how it got me over here in the first place. That's not the left-wing attitude of life, to be responsible for your own actions, I'm sure. But anyway, back to the radio. The one thing I want to do with this before I get too far, I wish this was a triple pole. Single pole. This is for all the different channels for building a radio, but I want to make other circuits. So when we get one circuit done and all tuned up and all working and we know where it is, then we go to another circuit and we re-loop that one, and then we change it a little, and then we make a whole other tank circuit for that one to get it perfectly matched to what we want. Now this is simple, not complicated, and that's what I'm trying to show. You can simply do this if you get the right way to be taught. Now when you get on a lot of electronics things, they throw out a bunch of numbers and a bunch of stuff and, what's that? Well, not here. We're going to go really easy and show everything in a repetition a little bit to see how it simply works. We're going to be just as easy as converting a tractor to 12 volts. And the tube circuits, I love tubes that stay low voltage. And the hard times that are coming, you're not going to get silicone chips anyway, and you don't want the controls that are associated with that. So anyway, that's how it's working. I'm going to have to conclude this video. I'm running out of time, but I want to go over one more thing with you to understand reasoning, because this is up close and personal video. I want you to know me, because I'm the one that's into my neck here. And I love my country, and I love my neighbors, and I love the Constitution. I love Alaska, and I got to get it back. Look I got to protect the life in the frontier. We got to protect the native peoples in the frontier with the tribal governments. They need to control their own. They need to be left alone. And we need to take this movement of building boroughs out of Alaska. It's not needed. It's not wanted. It's a power play. The people wanting to have power for themselves, to build a dynasty of politics. We don't want politics in the bush. They got to go away. And I'm here in exile because I stand so strong. And now I got a new children. And here, I'll tell you something else that's hard for me. I can't believe at 69 years old that I would turn around and try to work with the family, except I'm going to tell you about the Lord. If the Lord blazes a trail for you, you got to walk down it, because he looks out for us and he sees. There's a woman in World War II who's a prisoner, Lori Chung Bloom. She wrote a book about being in jail in Germany in World War II under the Germans. And their way of thinking is really good. Please understand that reality is something. So let's talk about the truth, especially with electronics. The truth is important. It's not true, it's not going to work. Well, there's a natural truth, and politicians bounce this as always socially accepted. Is that morally right? Is that the truth for what you are? And there's a real truth. And this is the difference in all of politics. Is it the natural truth, what fits and what people think is real and what people okay is true when it's not? Or is it the real truth of what's real? Now this is very important, the natural truth and the real truth. Now, when I was a young fella, this change had come through. My grandma called it the New Age movement. And when President Kennedy was killed, my grandma, I'm a little fella, she's telling me these things I'm telling you now, and I was just a little boy. She cried when Kennedy got killed. And of course, many of them are Republican, and they love Kennedy. Kennedy's a Democrat. You see, when I was a young man, President Nixon and President Kennedy worked in a program called HUAC. That's the House of Un-American Activities. And both of these parties stopped what's taken us today. Neither one of them would put up with it. Now today it's running everything. And so my belief is to tell you this. The first thing you need to do in life when you get up in the morning is to pray, love your family, but remember, you got to love thy neighbor. If the world is hard around you, the only good you're going to see when life is hard is somebody loving you back. And to me, that's really, really important. So anyway, I'm going to conclude this today, but I am preparing to go back to Alaska. It's going to be really hard because they're waiting for me, but this is the thing. Nothing is bigger than the rule of law, than the heart of the man that's willing to stand up and make it work. The Bible says that evil takes over when good men do nothing. And my religious background, I don't jump up and banner a church or anything, because they got to see me as, I want them to see me as an American. Me as a man that loves God and country, and not, I don't need any kind of a crutch. I don't want one. I want to see that if I can keep my neighbor free, then he can keep me free. And Alaska bush is beautiful, and I want them to stop invading people and to leave the native councils alone. Anyway, so I'm gonna conclude this for today, because editing is really hard. Now look, I'm in Southeast Asia. If you look at Malaysia, I'm right north of there, in the mountains, in Mindanao. And, you know, life is what it is everywhere. I'll tell you one thing that I dislike here a lot, I'm gonna be honest, I don't like cobras. I've run into 6 of them now. Whew. I'd rather see a grizzly bear naked than a cobra. Oh my God, you can't, what are you gonna do with that thing? And I had some pretty close. Anyway, so that's one thing I'm glad Alaska has no snakes. And I gotta tell you something, the food is good here. Oh, these people can really cook. And they take a root, wild roots they grow, and they cook them, and they taste so good. They got a root that's kind of like a potato, and kind of like a carrot, and it's in the wild, and it is healthy for you. Wherever you're at in life, you gotta love people and care about things around you. And I got the 3 beautifulest children in the world. They're Taboli. And I want to get them back to Nenana. And now I know George Hall and Nenana, they will be good to them, and they will be welcome. And so, because you know, their skin is darker, but God's love is going to be there. And so I want to go to Nenana really bad. I want to go home. I miss my friends. But I have to win this battle for my farm. Now, the title is in Colorado. And I went through terrible proceedings, and the divorce proceedings that I went through, they were illegal, because what they did was they violated many laws in which I was trying to be right and to make it work. I had legal counsel from a judge and 2 lawyers outside of the courtroom, because it's so wicked that I can't say their names, I won't say their names now because they have my trust. But Alaska has a weaponized system against people that want to protect the bush. The last frontier people, they got their spot on them and they want them out. And I know businessmen that had to leave and not come back, and politicians that had to leave, or some were killed. My friend Joel was murdered, and he told me 3 days before he died they were going to kill him. So the thing of it is this channel is reality and real. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't give a crap. If my John Deere tractor starts in the morning, it's working, and if it's not starting, there's something wrong. There's no conspiracy in that one. To me, there's no conspiracies. There's bad people and good people, and people with good things and bad things, and they need to be held accountable if it gets too bad. And my religious people that I grew up with, they want me to just die and kind of hide away and forgive in the name of Jesus and let it go. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to. I've forgiven the Lord, but I'm asking God's support for my land back and my farm back, because I got my farm in the first place from prayer, and I'm standing for it again. And so that's my channel here, and I love it. I love the MyScript Garage and all them things on YouTube. They're pretty cool. And you know, that guy Microwave, that guy's quite the genius. He doesn't say everything he knows, but he knows a lot more than he says. And then Carlson, he's really good at being clean and accurate, and he wants meticulous thinking. He's changed the way I work on my tractors for kind of well. I mean, he's quite a guy. So when you watch YouTube, to me, that's a First Amendment. YouTube is freedom of speech. So I'm going to close this for now, but I ask for your prayers, and I ask you to watch my channel again, and I'm going to talk to you through to probably the next meeting I'm going to have. I want a message to go to the Tribal Council in Nenana, Alaska, because I'm in a lot of trouble here and I'm coming back. So I'm going to address them for what's going on. And I have another thing. I have a friend that's passed on there, and so I want to address that in the next movie. Anyway, God bless. Thank you for watching my channel, and we will build radios, but we're going to have a good understanding of how they work. So if you can fix your tractor, you can build a tube radio. Amen for that. Anyway, God bless, and I see you met my son. He's quite a man, and I got 2 other ones. I got a boy just turned 10 and a girl Fritzy. You're going to love them, and I'll put them on the movie also. Anyway, God bless. See you later.